Your body knows how to be healthy. I'm your host, Martha Blessing, and this is the Place to Be Free podcast, a show that is passionately devoted to illuminating the potential within you to transform your health and life. We're shaking up and breaking up old paradigms so you can free up your mind and body, elevate your consciousness, and create profound well-being and a ridiculously happy and healthy life. On this show, we defy the norms and embrace a journey toward profound well-being and creating true freedom. We challenge patriarchal medicine, question fear-based culture, and dive deep into topics like quantum healing, energy medicine, mental science, consciousness, and universal spiritual laws. Whether you're here for solo explorations or the insightful interviews with individuals who've conquered fear and disease and broken through limitations, you're in for a transformative experience. If you're seeking empowerment, if you're ready for a life-changing shift, you're in the right place. Welcome to the podcast. Hi, it's Martha Blessing, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm excited to have Chyanne Bone back with us today, and we are going to go into expanding on the law of abundance. Chyanne has been here a couple of times as my guest, and she's a master at teaching these universal laws. And so welcome back, Chyanne. I'm excited to talk about this law of abundance with you.
Thank you for having me, Martha. I'm so excited to be back on your podcast.
So tell us, what is the law of abundance? I mean, we all want abundance. A lot of our listeners probably know Abraham Hicks and law of attraction and all those kinds of things. Tell us, to start out, what is law of abundance?
Law of abundance states that there is only abundance. And we can get this so messed up in our mind because, pretty quickly we want to say, well, I've got all these problems in my life, and I've got all of these health concerns in my life, and I've got no money in my life. Really?
Yeah.
That may be true, but look at it for a second. You have an abundance of problems. You have an abundance of health issues. You have an abundance of zeros in your account. It is the law of abundance, but you are focused on the wrong side of abundance.
Interesting. Okay, so if I'm understanding that, it's already, the abundance is already here, is what you're saying, but there's a misappropriation or a misalignment to what that person is wanting.
Yes. Abundance is here for us now.
Okay.
The universe, God, source wants us to experience abundance. It's up to us to choose what side of abundance. And when I say what side, I am talking about the law of polarity, which I know you've talked about on your podcast before.
Right.
So the law of polarity states that everything has an opposite, and its opposite is equal to it. So we bring that to the law of abundance. And like I was saying, we have an abundance of lack. We have an abundance of health problems. We have an abundance of issues with our accounts and not being able to pay things. If you take the law of polarity and switch it to the opposite side of that, you can have an abundance of wealth, an abundance of health, an abundance of beautiful things and beautiful experiences happening in your life. It's which side are you willing to focus on that is the abundance for you in your experience here.
Okay, so how do we get on the wrong side? Like, why are so many, I mean, I know I focus and I listen to and watch so many different things, and I see on social media so much focus on the things that people don't want. But how did we get to this place?
Oh, that's a great
in the first place, right? Like, how did we get to this negative focus?
That is a great question, Martha. And if I was to think on that for a second, a part of this is generational. a lot of our parents and our grandparents, they came from the Great Depression where there really wasn't much substance there. So we grew up in an environment where it's like, oh, we don't have the money for that. Or, they weren't taking care of themselves. So they were getting these illnesses and these ailments. And it was coming from, there's an abundance of sickness in here. So we pass it on to our children, and they are experiencing abundance in the negative side. And when we start from that in our life, we grow from that. And because it's more familiar to us, it seems to be our default. So when we're looking out in the world, we're literally looking for the lack. We're looking for proof of the existence of lack instead of the opposite of looking for proof of the abundance in wealth and health.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's the pattern, right? It's pattern recognition.
Absolutely.
It's something that we're not focused to look for or believe in. If our parents, I mean, I know when I was a nurse, and I was a community health nurse, and I used to go and do like substitute at the Ford plant where they made cars. And there was a real generational mindset there of, it was a decent paying job. And so like 2, 3, 4 generations of people worked in these same plants and these same jobs because that's what their parents did. And their parents would say, well, this is a good living, do this, do that. You'll get your pension, you'll get your this, your, whatever. And so is that the kind of programming that we're talking about?
Yes. It stifles our imagination. It kind of, okay, this is the path I'm supposed to go. I don't really need to be creative. I don't need to activate my imagination. I'll just go and do this job, be a robot, go there until, my pension's built up enough for me to retire, and then I'll figure out life from there.
Yeah. And really, it's built on you and I've had conversations, false sense of security.
Yes.
I mean, that's what somebody's parents did to feel safe and secure.
Yes.
But even during the Great Depression, yes, there were people who suffered and struggled. There was also people who were making money.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Okay. So how do people get from where they are in that place to the other side of the law?
I think it starts with, once again, the small things. Like, we need to become aware of what our pattern is first, because it's the default. If we're running on autopilot, we will always go back to our familiar zone. So it's the default. And we need to become aware of these when it's happening. We need to become aware of the pattern and make small shifts. Like, I had a conversation the other day, and somebody said, I have such a lack of confidence. Where's the abundance? I have such a lack of confidence. And I said, stop. You don't have a lack in confidence. You have an abundance of confidence in lack. Hear that again. You have an abundance of confidence in lack. You are choosing to be on the lack side of things instead of choosing to be on the abundance things. So again, that's law of polarity. Just stop yourself in the pattern. What am I choosing to focus on here? You are choosing to have a confidence in lack. So I can make that decision and make that choice. I can be abundant in confidence. It's literally just a choice to get to the other side, but we have to be aware of where our choices are in order to make that small shift.
What keeps us, what keeps us stuck in the other choice or the other lack or focus? Like what's the mechanism that keeps us stuck there? Is it just that pattern that we've repeated over and over? Is it the belief? Yeah.
Right? Like, it's our subconscious. It's easier to run the pattern than it is to make a choice to be different from it. So, there's let's take health and wellness. Like if you're programmed your whole life that you have an abundance of health problems, if somebody comes along and says you can just make a choice to be on the abundance of health and wealth, that's kind of jarring to us. It's more familiar for us to be on the other side, and we would have to change a belief, a core belief that we are always sick, to a core belief that I can be healthy and I can be wealthy. It's a core belief that holds us over there in that familiar pattern.
Yeah.
And it's a simple choice, but it doesn't feel simple when you start, right?
Well, I think we don't know that we're in the pattern, right? Interestingly, I've had clients who, no matter, like, if you point out and say, you're choosing this, they're like, well, I'm not choosing this. Why would I choose to be sick? Well, you and I both know that we may have chosen that pattern of illness in response to something in our environment.
Yeah.
Many years ago as a child, right? Or, decades ago, maybe we needed love and attention. And so we figured out early on that if we were sick, mom or dad might come and hold us or take care of us or do something to comfort us. And so we associated that pattern and that energy with getting our needs met and getting what we wanted, and it felt safe, right? Yeah. So why would we choose to break that, even though it's focusing on what we don't want?
Right. Our subconscious doesn't know that we've grown up. So until we make the decision, until we command it that we are safe and we are grown and we no longer need that pattern, it will always run it because it doesn't know that you've grown up. It doesn't know that you've left that environment that maybe was even abusive. You worded that so beautifully. We created the pattern when we needed it to save us. And our subconscious will run that pattern until we literally command it and tell it and change the belief that I am safe now. I am no longer in that environment where I need that need to be met. I can now meet that need myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, right, this idea of why are we on the wrong side, so to speak, of abundance, of the law and what we're focusing on, that too can be a rescue pattern.
Oh, yes.
Right? Like we don't see it as a rescue pattern. Most people will say, why, you're crazy. Why would I choose to be broke? Right? Or why would I choose to not be able to pay my bills? Mm-hmm. But if that pattern that we developed early on was related to someone rescuing us so that we can feel love, we're going to keep those dynamics alive so that we can still feel that love and feel that, like it's a dysfunctional rescue codependency, really. Like let's just say, like, that's where the whole codependency is, right? We need this pattern to identify with in order to feel like we're getting our needs met, and yet we're not getting them met.
Yes.
So is it hard for people to understand that it's just that simple, that it's just choosing what you're focused on? And like, which comes first? Do they come first of, you said, awareness? So take me through the steps. Like, first you have to have the awareness that you're doing it. How does a person, like, if they're really stuck, how do they get the awareness? Does somebody have to point it out to them? Do they, like, is it a coach or somebody that's going to, because you and I have talked many times about all sorts of different things. And so, like, we don't always see our patterns. So that person that's stuck, what are they going to, what's going to get them to be aware first off? Do they need to get so fed up? Does the pain have to get so bad that they just like surrender and the answer comes? Or do they need somebody to kind of smack them in the face and say, hey, wake up? I used to need people to smack me. I used to need people to smack me in the face, right? Wake up, Martha.
Yes. Oh, this is a beautiful, beautiful description, beautiful question. There's multiple answers to this, Martha. There are people who just need somebody to tell them, look them in the face and say, hey, you've got a pattern going on here. And if you don't correct this pattern, you will continue it for the rest of your life. And sometimes that's really effective for people like you and I. Sometimes it's such a blind spot for us that until somebody physically tells you that you are in a pattern, you're never going to wake up to it. So getting a coach and a mentor is extremely helpful in those situations.
Yeah. Even more so, I think, than, quote, a healer, right? Because, I mean, my experience, and I've gone through this recently with a client, right? You know, and you and I have talked about this, like the person that just wants the healer, just wants somebody to fix them. They want somebody else to do it for them versus the truth teller that's going to, you know, like we say, kind of slap them around a little bit and say, hey, wake up.
Yes, and that goes right back to the rescue pattern, right?
Yeah.
It's keeping that pattern alive in you. So even going to a healer to get this healed and taken from you, you're going to repeat it because you're going to put yourself back in the situation where you need rescued. And instead of solving it at a core level, you're looking for a healer to take it away from you. But in reality, the universe, God's source, is putting you in those situations so that you get the chance to grow and level up and get to the next stage. So you no longer repeat this pattern. And that's where having a mentor or a life coach or a coach of some sort is so effective because they put it in front of you and they're not going to do it for you. You've got to do the work.
Yeah. And I think with coaches and mentors too, it's important because, especially if they're intuitive, they can see and they can, you know, talk in a different way versus someone who wants to just go, oh, now, yes, that's so sad. I see you're in pain. I see you're in, you know, I mean, I don't minimize. I have compassion for everyone's pain and situation, right? And their symptoms. I mean, I've been in it. So, but oftentimes they think of it as someone who's going to keep the pattern alive with them.
Yes.
Right. And then when that person, you know, that mentor, that coach doesn't, they will say, oh, how dare she? Or, you know, this style isn't working for me, right? I had somebody say to me, you know, your communication style isn't working. And I was like, no, my communication style is just the fact that you don't like me telling you what the problem is.
Yes.
You don't like me showing you and helping you actually break through. You expect change without change. It's not possible.
Exactly.
Yeah. So being aware
Yes.
is the first step.
Yes, being aware is the first step. And you said it very quickly in there. Coaches and mentors have a way of seeing this because they were there themselves. They were put through the guidance from the universe, the guidance from God to go through these lessons and learn them eyes wide open so that they could be the guides for the people who are about to go through it next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, versus a therapist who, you know, sorry for any of the therapists that are listening, but versus being a therapist who pretty much just does what the insurance companies tell them to do and can bill for it. And they won't ever cross the line and really go deep into telling you what it is you need to hear. They have a very, you know, professional boundaries, right? And keep it in this box. So the person just keeps continue to focus on, well, how do you feel about that, right? If it's trauma or abuse or, money, whatever it is, it's like, well, how do you feel about that? Oh, I feel, and the person feels like shit. And so what do? They ruminate and repeat, and it's repetitive, and they're continuing to focus on the side of the law of abundance that they don't want, an abundance of pain, an abundance of symptoms, abundance of not being able to find their way to the other side.
Yes. And what we focus on grows. So if you're constantly staying on the negative side, if you're constantly worried about all of these ailments, you're just perpetuating the same problems. And the more energy that you pour into there, Martha, the stronger it will grow. The bigger the problems will come, the more ailments, the more serious the diagnosis, they will all come in this abundance, law of abundance, and it will just amplify everything. And to get to the other side of that can seem scary to start. Like,
it's unfamiliar, right? It's completely unfamiliar.
Yes.
That goes back to pattern recognition.
Yes.
We don't have a pattern for the abundance that we desire.
Mm-hmm.
So what keeps a person moving forward into the positive side of this law of abundance? To like, how do you not backtrack?
Notice when the changes happen. So in order to make this successful, because your brain, your subconscious is going to want to run the pattern to take you back to the lack, you're going to stop the pattern, make a small shift. Even if it's, you're in a negative cycle and you're walking and you see a beautiful sight, just stop. Look at the beautiful sight and say, "Thank you, God. This is a beautiful sight. Thank you so much for this beautiful experience." And the more we do that, the constant spaced repetition of recognizing the beautiful side of the abundance, the wealthy side, the healthy side of the abundance, the more our mind will become familiar with the positive side and become programmed to the positive side. It won't be unfamiliar anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, I often, it's just a practice every day in my life to be focused on like the beauty that I'm surrounded with. And that's what feeds me, right? And I had a client once, I've probably mentioned this a couple times on the podcast, and she really was in significant pain and had been for several decades. And she was making progress, but part of what she desired was she loved the water and she wanted to be on the beach. And so, that was kind of part of her healing and her therapy and whatever else was she wanted to go to the beach. So when I talked with her, I said, did you go to the beach this week? And she said, no. And I said, why not? And she said, well, because I'm in pain. And I looked at her and I said, so what? And of course she didn't like that, right? I'm like, so what? And it had nothing to do with the fact of me understanding and having compassion for her pain. The truth is, you're going to be in pain whether you stay home or whether you go to the beach where you find joy and beauty. Right? So if you're going to be in pain anyway, you might as well go to the place where you at least can see and feel some joy. And if that connects you to God and source and thinking more positively about your world and the universe, then from what you're saying, then they're on the other side of the law of abundance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe people need to stop and think, maybe I'm in pain because I'm not allowing myself to experience what I want to experience.
Mm-hmm.
So by going to the beach and going to put her feet in the sand and feel that breeze and the beautiful views, maybe that's the healing that's going to take the pain away.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I know so much of our pattern and our tape can be needing to punish ourselves, right? Like
Yes.
that's a whole nother podcast. But that idea of not being worthy, not being deserving, I can't appreciate and enjoy life. And if that was a program and a story that we got from our parents, right? Work hard, if that's a value, if we didn't get there and if it wasn't hard enough, we feel that we didn't earn it, we're not worthy of it. And so we're going to, again, not receive that abundance or not allow ourselves, let me stay in pain, let me punish myself.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, this is fantastic. I really appreciate you coming and talking about the law of abundance. And I know that you have a course and a program on the universal laws. And if people want to learn more about that and working with you, what should they do?
If people want to join my course, it is an online program, and you can head to www.ChyanneBone.com. That's ChyanneBone.com. And you'll find all the information there.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here and sharing this law of abundance with our listeners. And thanks for listening. And we'll see you in the next podcast. Thanks for joining me on another episode of the Place to Be Free podcast. If you found inspiration in our discussions on empowered living, mindset, and spiritual laws and healing, don't forget to subscribe and share the wisdom with your community. Connect with me on social media, and for exclusive content, free resources, and to stay updated on upcoming episodes, visit the website at marthablessing.com/free stuff. Until next time, remember, you're the author of your story. Keep breaking through barriers, defy old worn-out beliefs and patterns, and create a life without limitation. I'll see you in the next episode.